Hi, everyone, and welcome to this webinar about digital tests and team-based learning. I'm Stina. I'm the Product Communications Manager in It's Learning, and I am so excited to introduce our speaker today, Anne Mølgaard Nielsen from the University of Southern Denmark. And Anne has helped us a lot and contributed to the development of the test tool and collaborated with our product owner, Freydis, who's also in this call. And she has some excellent and creative ways in which she uses tests to support pedagogical processes, improve engagement and collaboration. And we are very excited to hear from her. And if you have any questions, please post them in the questions tab and we'll answer them after the webinar. As mentioned, Freydis is here as well. So if you have questions directly related to the It's Learning test tool, we're happy to answer them as well. But I'll hand this over to you, Anna, and you can go ahead and teach us about testing and pedagogical processes.
Thank you so much. So, thank you. So I'm so pleased to be able to present here for you today about the use of It's Learning when conducting team-based learning. And the experience I've got is mainly from the medical program we have here at the University of Southern Denmark, where team-based learning is actually mandatory for more or less all courses at the master's level. So that's sort of the background of that. So overall, team-based learning is where you activate the students, but it's guided by the lecturer. And the students get feedback both from each other, but also from the lecturer. And it can also be used for small, but especially it works well for this by very large student population. So it's just a great way of have active learning and active teaching for everyone. There's quite a 6 steps in related to team-based learning. So as you see to the left, the more time you spend on the steps, the more the learning goes up. So I'll just walk you through the 6 steps, and then I'll show you how we use It's Learning afterwards. So in the first step, it's actually out of class, and it's the individual that does that bit. So it's an advanced assignment. So the students receive clear requirements for the preparations. It could be a list of learning activities accompanied by the learning goals. So the students study the materials in preparation for the TBL session. And the learning activities might be, as you probably know, readings, videos, labs, tutorials, lectures, etc. Then we move on to the step 2. It's happening in the class, but it's still the individual that performs it. So a team-based learning session starts with an individual test for the students, and it's around 8 to 10 multiple choice questions, which is related to the topic of the day and the associated syllabus, which is also related to the team application problems that comes later on. So it's sort of the students' understanding of the concepts of the textbooks which is tested. That was step 2. When we move on to step 3, still in class, but now the team up. So it's the same team. They're going to do this with each time through the course. And it's the same set of questions they're now going to answer, but they're going to do it through, so the team is going to answer through sort of a consensus building discussion. So it's only one person from each group who are allowed to respond, and they respond on behalf of the entire group. So it gives them some opportunity to sort of translate their knowledge from the curriculum into academic argumentation. So it gives you, it's just really practice how to find out what's the right question and with all the knowledge they already have. And then it gives you, just really, really good reflections for all of them. Then we usually have a break before we move on to step 4, which is the instructor clarification review. And in the break, the instructor, the lecturer, will receive or will export a question analysis and look into all the tests or look into the question analysis to see which scores were the lowest of all the multiple choice questions, which give the lecturer an opportunity to focus the mini lecture, the instructor clarification review, so that clarification review can focus on the questions that the students thought was really difficult. So Yeah, so it goes through all the questions, the mini lecture, but it all to make sure the students know what was the correct answer. But as I said, it then focused on the more complex problems. And also it makes the instructor clarification review also prepares the students for the next step, which is the team application. And that's step 5. So the students again get together in the groups, the pre-established ones, and then a case is presented to them. And the case is based on the day theme, and it has to depict a realistic and authentic scenario that they might run into in their future practice. Um, and it is important that all the groups get the same question, but also the same answer options. And it's important it's not just one correct answer, but actually 3 equally good and correct answers. So this results in significantly more engaged students, and they really have to, try and practice how to argue for which answer options they think is the right one. So they apply their knowledge, that's the team application, apply their knowledge to the case to support and refute the action and response option, which the team determines is the most appropriate to resolve the case. And then finally, step 6, they get together again within the classroom, and then the groups and the lecturer meet up, and each group has to display which answer option did we pick. So the lecturer at the same time see all the answer from all the groups, and we use colored laminated cards with A, B, D, C, or maybe D if there's 4 options. And then it's quite easy to see where were people, and they are, all have to do that the same. They can't hide. So, and then after that, there's still time to discuss which solution or answer option was the most optimal for the case. So this was just the overall introduction to team-based learning, and I'll now try and focus on the handling of step 2 and step 3, because that's where we use the test tool in its learning. Originally, the student was handed out a piece of paper with the questions and 2 rows for the IRAD response and the TRAD response, but turning into a digital version makes it easier to handle as a lecture, and also make especially the question analysis a lot simpler and faster. And as I said, the question analysis is used for making the mini lecture focused on the questions which the students found most difficult. So the IRAD, the Individual Readiness Assurance Test, and the TRAD, the Team Readiness Assurance Test, are the 2 that we use the test tool for, and I'll just show you how we do that. So before was a piece of paper, and now in its learning. So going into the test tools, you have all these options that you have to choose from. So what we do, we control the visibility. So if a lecture starts at 8 o'clock, it's 8:15, and we haven't got any end time on the test. And then we set 15 minutes, even though the time limit is 10, just to make sure everyone has the possibility to come and to start off the test. And some not even real technical issues, but sometimes just good to have a bit of extra time. And then we do not allow them to see the results or the feedback after the first test, because that was the individual one. So now they're going to discuss with the teams. Of course, they should know what was the correct answer. So the TRAD is just a copy of the IRAD, but then the visibility is of course different. It's 15 minutes later. They've got a bit more time. They now have 15 minutes to complete from when they open the test, and then to commit all the responses. And now they actually see the results, but not the correct answer. So they do see if they responded correctly, but if it was a wrong choice, they don't see what was the correct answer then. So they can be excited about listening to the mini lecture to know what was the right one. And then when the test finishes, and this is sort of what happens in the break after the IRAD, TRAD, then we go into the TRAD, and then within the results tab, you find the export question analysis, and we insert a filter to make sure we can filter the ones you would like to, and then we go to the column with answer to the max score, and then filter based on that, so the lowest score is at the top, And then we go back to the column with the number for each case to see what should we focus on in the instructor clarification review in the mini lecture step 4. And usually it'll be around 3 or 4 questions with the low scores. So yeah. So going back to the overview, we talked about IRAT, the TRAT, and the instructor clarification review. And as you see here, the feedback to the individual student was given sort of by talking to each other. And in the TRAT especially, they get the peer feedback. And then in the instructor clarification review, they get the lecture feedback as well. So lots of feedback included. So now I'll just also show you how we handle the other steps using its learning resources. So first of all, we have a plan, and usually have a whole topic called team-based learning, and then for each class we have a single plan. And what's always included is the general information. So using a page for the general information, which is about what is TBL and how does it work. And then we have one saying how to find your TBL team, the team-based learning team, because it's going to be, as I said, predetermined teams. So they need to know who I'm going to be working together with in advance, and also where to sit. So that's sort of the, just go one back. So that's the overview of the room. Emil also is a room, the lecture theatre. So who you're going to, do the TRAT with, and also where to place yourself in the room. That's sort of all the advanced assignment, the first step to be prepared. And then apart from this, there's this preparation and learning goals, which is what's been included for this specific session. It could be lots of other things. So yeah, use the page and the file, and then for this, that was step 1. And then if we jump to step 5, the team application, it's made ready as well. So you see the TBL, the IRAT, the TRAT, which I'll just make it a bit more visible. So you've got the IRAT and the TRAT, which is timed. So it'll be visible when it, as I showed you before, when the visibility was. And then the cases here is timed as well. So it'll be visible by the time they finish the mini lecture. What we've also included here is a PDF of the TRAT, because then if they're, as they are at the moment, sitting around along round tables, everyone can then go through and look at the questions and answer options within the TRAT when they discuss. Because if it's only one person sitting with the laptop open, it can be difficult to discuss. So now we've made a PDF ready for the ones who are not the one who are responding on behalf of the group. Yes, and then just to show you also what we present for the students. This is one example of a lecture hall. So you've got the team, TBL team number 1, who knows they're going to place themselves in the front, just close to the blackboard, etc. And this will be both, as I showed you, visible or available on its learning beforehand, but also when they come into the room, this will be what's showing on the screen. And then we just introduce and say welcome, and then also say, so what's the time schedule of today? So they've got IRAT, the TRAT, the break, the mini lecture, and then the presentation of the case. And sometimes there will be a second part released, and then this will also be told when they go through the schedule. And then the last half an hour is to the conclusion, but especially also the discussion. And then the IRAT starts, and this is what we show the students. Please enter the course room for the module on its learning. And on the front page, you find the IRAT. Click and begin, and then they get a password for this one. And then they also told once again they have got 10 minutes to complete. And same for the TRAT. Make sure you see the video team, find a team manager to take IRAT on its learning. And if you're not, well, you can open the PDF copy. You have got 15 minutes. So I'll just show you a bit more live also. So how does it look? And first of all, I'll show Peter, who's a student in one of our courses, fake student. who's now going to go through the general information. So for some of these, it's a mandatory session, as you see here. And then if they fall ill, what should they do? And about team-based learning, the information for students. So before, what should you be aware of and how does it work? And some literature. So that was one of them I showed you. And then how to find a TBL team. We made a guide to the students. So you go into more, find participants and find your name and look up what team number you're in. And then you can go also and find your teammates. How do you do that? So a short guide also for that. And then, as I told you, they also know in advance where to place themselves in a lecture hall. So if I was Peter, I'll go to participants and I'll find myself, I'm in TBL2. Oh, just show you here, TBL2. And then I can go to the group and say, I only want to say TBL Team 2. And then I can look up my group. So that was the student view for the preparation, which you can see in the plan here as well. All the preparation. It could also be some resources and activities. Then if you move on to the teacher's view, I can show a bit more. So this is more or less the same, but now you can see all the timed elements. So I'll just go through the TRAT to show you. So you've got a test here and you've got the questions. So one question, multiple choice question. So it's saying about the enemy, which one is not a macro tutor, and then they have got the alternatives, and it's also said which one is the correct. And we always use a score value of 1. And of course here we do not use the feedback part because it's a different setting. And the options I said about the visibility. So this was half pass for the TRAT. You've got the deadline and it's assigned to all the course participants. And there's 10 questions in this one, so the max score is 10. They are allowed 1 attempt and the time limit is 15 minutes. And the test security is not on for this one. And the result never saw results. That was probably not right. This is I'll just change it because this is not right for this one. For this, it should be after the attempt, but never show the correct answers. Sorry for that. This is a fake course. So this is how it would look if it's a TRAT. Yep. And then back to the plans again. Then there was the timing of also the PDF copy, but also the cases. So you've got a case which is then just in this a Word document, which is handed or uploaded to the students and with lots of information, and then the students have to go through some points and discuss at the end. So which one is it, A, B, or C? You then what do you think is the correct answer? Yes. And I'll just move on to the presentation again. Radio. So what is all the preparation for lecture with regards to conducting team-based learning? First of all, I'll just make sure you consider the reverse course design. So what should the students be able to do after the TBL session? So the learning objectives from the course description, if you then do that at first, so what should they prepare and which authentic problems should then be the students then be able to resolve by the end of the course, and then what knowledge is necessary, and then that preparation. So by doing this, you sort of make it easier for yourself to decide on the different things you have to prepare. But hands-on, what should you prepare as a lecture? We have to decide what the students should prepare and preferable link to learning objectives. And then you also prepare the questions, the multiple choice questions, each with 4 possible answers and indicating the correct answer, of course, as well. And then the questions are used, a copy of each is just the settings that differs, but the questions are then uploaded to It's Learning and used for the IRAT and the TRAT, so step 2 and step 3. And then you are to prepare 1 or 2 cases depending on the topic and what the content of it. It differs how much you are to prepare. But the most important thing is that you have 3 or 4 equal answer options each for the cases that you have. Then you need to provide the predefined groups so the students in advance know who they are going to team up with and also where to be placed. And then, of course, you are to prepare It's Learning. So it's all set. And then I'll just let you know some of the things that we have learned at the University of Southern Denmark by running team-based learning for the last probably 4 or 5 years. The students really appreciate the teaching method. They show up and they ask for more, which is a good sign. We cannot see whether exam results have changed. It hasn't been the goal either, so this is more some other measurements we can use. The goal is not the exam or specific learning objectives really, it's the process, it's the academic critical thinking skills that we want to explore. So the collaboration, the discussion improves this, and also professional skills in general by having to collaborate. So it's more ensuring readiness. It's also development of the students' capacity for self-study, so lifelong learning and flexibility in learning styles. So there's some good things with this. Also, it's real teams and team interaction skills is also practiced a bit in this. And also, I also believe the students get some insights into the value of different inputs. So the quiet students might be the one that you listen to the third or the fourth times he's actually or he is right. And also I like the way that teaching time is used to develop students' critical thinking and application orientation. So, and by this, it is important with a central supervisor at the education institution to make sure that you actually run the concept right, because sometimes you just pick bits of it, but then it doesn't have the same value at the end. So to get the sort of the goal of RAT, to make sure the readiness assurance tests, etc., gives the benefit you want, you need to stay a bit strict to the concept. And it also works, what I just want to say is also it works well face to face, but also in a lecture theatre. But it works well face to face, as I just mentioned, but it also actually works online. During COVID, we just used Zoom and then breakout rooms, and it worked fine. And you can still use It's Learning to support all the tests. It's the same. So it's all sort of just a matter of getting the teams together in a place where they can sit and talk and chat without being too disturbed. So if you take actually teaching time used to develop students' critical thinking, and I just think that's a really great thing. And here at SDU at the moment, it has been a lot of health-related topics that's been in focus, but also the other people have been used it for engineering-related topics, and theory of science have used it, and humanity, I've seen examples of that. So I think anything where you're able to stimulate critical thinking, I'm sure it can be useful. So of course it's easy with patient cases, but for example, theory of science, so which research design is relevant in this, if you have a hypothesis, so which research design should be used. We have had in anatomy, we have had a case saying a knife in the back with 3 different scenarios, all depending on where the knife had hit. It could be something about interpretation of data, laboratory clinical tests, other technical tests. And then sometimes you might also have a case where 3 scientific papers have disagreed and say, so which one should we do we think is the most evidence-based one, or which one is the best? Yep. And the strengths and limitation, if you just put it into and compare them to other teaching or pedagogical strategies. Then if it was just a mini lecture itself, as you see here with the Bloom's taxonomy, you would remember and you might understand, but it's difficult to apply and analyze, evaluate. So we do move up the steps and really get some more benefit from lifting it from just a pure lecture to team-based learning. So yeah, so yeah, it is really, and it's fairly easy. And the teachers, most of our lectures here at SU actually do like having team-based learning when they first have, especially prepared the first time, because with all the interaction they can get with the student as they walk around and talk to students as they discuss and listen to them, they just get a different feeling of what's going on, and they really like that. And it has been a successful concept since 1986. And what we know is that teams perform better than individuals. So you could say, you do know that in the majority of class, sometimes there will be some people who talk a bit louder than others, and often you listen to them and you think they might be right. But what happens here is that the quiet student gets a voice. And what they've seen in the majority of cases when they do the IRAD and compare to the TRAD, most teams actually score higher than the individuals, which is also what they learn from. So do not have to have a lot of group work, lots of skills with regards to group work, because it comes with this setting that's put into. Yeah. So now, yep, time for questions. It was a quick run through.
Thank you, Anna. I think this was really interesting, and maybe it was clear as a whistle too, because I haven't had any questions in the chat.
Oh.
So I know, but it's but let's leave it open for a bit of time, and then people can have a think if they have something they want to ask you.
I
I've
can
got a
say we've
comment.
got okay.
Just that's very interesting. Thank you.
Thank you. I might just tell we have made some rules at the University of Southampton. I might just share them with you. So some lectures, as I said, might just think, I just want to use the IRAT or the TRAT, and then, I like that bit. So we have made some rules. If they are calling it, our lectures here, team-based learning, we want them to sort of follow the formal rules. So it is necessary to outline the preparation that the students are expected to make before the team-based learning session. So that's the step one. And also the number of questions, sometimes the lectures have made too many because you get so excited, but it has to be a decent number so the time of the IRAD and TRAD is reasonable. So also the length of the questions, you have to be aware, does it fit with the time? So that's sort of the reason for this saying there must be 8 or 10 multiple choice. And then with the number of equal answer options afterwards, also quite important. So,
I've
and
got a question for you
yep.
here. It says a clarifying question. The students show up, you say. Is the activity voluntary or compulsory?
It is compulsory for some courses, and then a few is voluntary. Usually they turn up as soon as they get to know the benefit of it and when they've tried it. But the first couple of times, if it isn't mandatory or compulsory, they tend to stay away because they think, no, I'll just read it by myself. So, but when they start, really liking discussions and they can feel themselves how they improve their critical thinking, they actually show up. So, but of course, it's always easier to make it mandatory, and we also tend to have lots of team-based lessons where it is actually compulsory, because otherwise, it's sort of for the teams. It doesn't work if there's too many who stays away. Yep.
Yes, I think you just answered the follow-up question here too. So experience for both parts, the mandatory and voluntary. But it seems that if it's mandatory
Yep.
and they understand the benefits, they show up
Yep.
voluntarily afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah. Because otherwise, the teams, it is a problem for the teams if they start, if there's too many who do not show up, then it doesn't make sense with the predefined teams. Mhm.
So I don't have any more questions in here. Let's just give it a couple of minutes, Anna, if they
Yep.
can have a think about it. We will share this recording with everyone that has registered, so you can have a look at it after we've done here today. And hopefully it was as interesting for you guys listening in that it was for me.
And I can also show a few. I've got some examples just to say you need the 4 or 5, response options and the case. Just give you a bit of time to read what could it look like. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Anna. I don't think there are any more questions here, so I think I'll just leave you to get on with the rest of your day. But thank you so much again for taking the time to present this to us. It was very interesting. We're getting some applause here, I can see, so that's good. And we'll
My
speak
pleasure.
soon. All
Great.
right.
Thank you.
See you guys.